Today is January 29th, 2019, and the hearings for the Khabib versus Conor McGregor Brawl have finally come at the Nevada State Athletic Commission. We've been waiting for this for a while. Obviously, the fight happened on October 6th, so this is almost 3 full months after the fight happened. And we got the results in, but before I dig into what the results were, I just want to go through the video one more time of what happened after the fight against, or the fight between Conor and Khabib. Talk about what happened, and then we'll talk about what the punishments were and whether or not I think they're fair. So this is after the fight. This is Khabib jumping over the fence after yelling at Dylan Dennis. Tries to kick him and then gets into a brawl in there. You can see over here, looks like Conor's trying to jump over. He's getting hit by Khabib's cornerman. Right now, it looks like security's mostly stopped it. Conor's still in their face. And then here's another one of Khabib's cornermen coming in from behind, jumps him. And another one comes after him as well. And I believe in red, that was Zubara Tukagov. And I think this was Khabib's cousin right here who had jumped in right after Zubara did. And that's just more footage from the crowd. So it's worth noting, first person to start a fight outside the cage was Khabib. He's the one who started off by yelling at Dylan, but then jumped the cage and actually got into a brawl outside of there. From there was a brawl with Khabib jumping into Conor's corner. Basically, Khabib was attacking Conor's friends. Khabib's friends were then looking to jump in to also attack Conor's friends. So Conor was looking to jump the fence and get involved in that too. And in the process of him trying to come over, one of Khabib's friends, or one of his, I believe it was his cousin, tried to jump over the fence, and Conor attacked him, which had they both jumped over the fence and they were both trying to protect each other's guys, they probably would have been hitting each other there anyway. So they were hitting each other inside the cage. And then after it looked like it was broken up, then a couple of Khabib's guys still kept going after Conor. So as far as the actual punishments go, let me see where they're at. For Khabib Nurmagomedov, he was suspended 9 months and fined $500,000. The suspension can be reduced to 6 months. And the note on that 6-month reduction is 3 months can be taken off if he films an anti-bullying PSA and then helps distribute it, which is kind of bizarre that they're so pushy on getting him to film an anti-bullying PSA. I don't know how useful that would actually be, especially since everyone knows that he was compelled to do it. It's not like he's doing this out of the goodness of his own heart. For Conor McGregor, he was suspended 6 months and fined $50,000. There wasn't an option for an anti-bullying PSA with him, so it's just going to be 6 months. And 6 months from the fight would be early April. I think April 6th would be when he's eligible to fight. And same goes for Khabib with the 6 months. If he does the bullying PSA, he'll be eligible to fight in April, which is fine right now. We're at the end of January, so if they're scheduling a new fight, even if there was no suspension, you kind of figure that these guys won't be scheduled before April anyway, so I don't know it's going to be too consequential for them. And then Zubara Tukagov, who's the guy in the red shirt who jumped Conor, and then Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov, who I believe is the other guy who was going after him, were suspended 1 year and fined $25,000. So a few more notes from the MMA media after this came out. Ariel Helwani spoke with Khabib's manager, Ali Abdelaziz. Ali says he doesn't think it's fair. Khabib gets $500,000 and Conor gets $50K. He thinks it's bullshit. And then as far as the length of the suspension, he says it's fair that they both get 6 months, but he doesn't think that it's right that the teammates are both getting a year. And it's worth noting the teammates are paying $25K. Conor paid $50K, and then Khabib paid $500K. Now, it's obviously worth noting with these amounts, these are most likely being done as percentages of purse. So if you're charging, for example, it's like a basic idea. If you're charging someone 10% of their purse, someone who makes $10,000 is only going to pay $1,000. Someone who makes $100,000 is going to pay $10,000. So even though the actual amount is going to be different, the percentage might be the same. So Zubara and Abu Bakr don't make as much money as Conor and Khabib, obviously. So it almost seems like for them, the $25K is a much higher percentage of what they were making than what Conor or what they normally make compared to Conor. Conor, obviously, $50K is not much for him, but Khabib $500K on what was one of his it actually was his biggest fight, is a pretty substantial amount of money. As far as whether or not I think it's fair that those guys got a year, definitely. I think Khabib got lucky with the 9 months. I think the fact that the $500K was involved and the anti-bullying PSA is going to be part of it is why he's getting so much less than his teammates are. But in reality, this all stemmed from him jumping over the cage and attacking Dylan Dennis. He's the one who's responsible for all this. So for him to get a shorter suspension than his teammates, you'd have to figure that the $500K kind of figured into that, so that the money kind of made up for some of the time there. Again, so Conor fined $50,000 for his role in the brawl, and whether or not that's fair, like I was mentioning before, like if you got your friends and your teammates, they're getting attacked, and you have other people who are jumping in to attack them, you kind of have to jump in. Like I don't take any issue with what Conor did. I don't take any issue with him hitting Abu Bakr on the cage because Abu Bakr was going in to hit his friends, and once the fight started, you kind of have to ride with your guys. So to me, a slap on the wrist would have been perfectly fine here, even if it was just like a 3-month suspension, just so they say they did something, even though it really is effectively nothing for a guy who doesn't fight every 3 months. I don't know that Conor really deserved much. I think the fact that a guy who makes as much money as Conor only got fined $50,000 shows that, at least in terms of what compared to what Khabib got, that they understood that Conor's role was very minimal in it. But I still don't think that he should have gotten fined $50,000 for basically punching someone who's about to attack his coaches and teammates. After the ruling came down, Khabib tweeted "Politics forever." Dylan Dennis, who surprisingly wasn't included in this because he's the one who got jumped, and I'm pretty sure he punched back. Just told Khabib to shut up, and if you're a Dylan guy, you like that. If you're not a Dylan guy, then you kind of have like the response that MMA Team Dag stamp it up, where it's just comparing him to a chicken. Also worth noting from Meryl Helwani from LA Abilities, who said that Khabib was paying for his own fine. He's paying the fine's teammates, and then he's also going to pay $200,000 for a lawyer, so he'll be paying $750,000 in total. Kind of curious if he paid $200,000 to that lawyer, what he would have gotten had he not had the $200,000 lawyer. Seems like they got him pretty bad. Maybe it would have been a longer term. Maybe it would have been the $500,000 plus a longer term, like a year or 2 years. So maybe in the end of the day, the $200,000 was a worthwhile investment. But it seems like a lot for a lawyer when you still get a pretty harsh punishment. But as far as the punishments go, I think I've kind of told you guys where I see it. I think for Zubaira and Abu Bakr, I think they might have even gotten lucky for it just to be a year and the $25,000. For them to have it getting paid by Khabib, that's fortunate for them because that would have been a substantial amount of money for them otherwise. For Conor, I don't think the 6 months is fair, given that he was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place once he's got guys jumping in to attack his friends. And then the $50,000, like granted, it's a small percentage for him, but that's still a lot of money for something where I really don't think he did anything wrong. And then for Khabib, it seems like it probably got off a little bit late, but $500,000 is still a substantial amount of money, even if it's not the most major percentage when he most likely had pay-per-view points on what was the biggest UFC pay-per-view to date. But as bad as this seems, one of the things that always interests me with these Nevada State Athletic Commission hearings is that you have these guys who are these bureaucrats who act as judges in deciding what sort of punishment these fighters get. And it's a dangerous opportunity in that you have these people who oftentimes they don't always feel the most power in their own personal lives, and they have this position where all of a sudden they have a ton of power. They can kind of just make decisions willy-nilly. And if you're the type of person who is likely to kind of let power corrupt you, this can definitely corrupt you. And we've had issues with the Nevada State Athletic Commission in the past just going overboard. I was worried that would happen this time. As far as the punishments go, I don't know if they went overboard. I guess $50,000 I would think is overboard for McGregor. But to me, what really was ridiculous was in the process of talking about what happened here, one of their guys, Anthony Marnell, brought up the idea that the verbal part of promotion is out of line and it's embarrassing and that it's not appropriate to insert at this time, but they'll give published guidance about language. So basically the idea is they're talking about setting rules for what fighters can say in a pre-fight scenario and hyping up a fight. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't even think this is something that they can get away with. First off, to even have the idea that, hey, I as a commissioner want to police talk or I want to police trash talk, it's kind of just a ridiculous idea to come up in the back of your head in the first place. But for you to go from saying, hey, this is just something I'm thinking about, to actually thinking, okay, this is something I'm willing to talk about in person at a televised hearing, that's absurd. Beyond that, it's not just that they talked about it, they're talking about possibly trying to implement this. Now, I don't see any possible way that this is going to work. Even if they do implement the rules, they're going to get in trouble. They're going to get sued over free speech, and they're going to lose that suit. So to me, this is just a pointless waste of time. It's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's not good for them. They take advantage of all the money that they get off of these fights when people come to Nevada, and a lot of that comes from this trash talk. So for them to try to limit free speech and take away trash talk, it doesn't make any sense. And on top of that, I mean, who are you saying is responsible here? I thought you said that Khabib was responsible by the massive fine that you gave him. In saying that Khabib Nurmagomedov has to pay $500,000 and he's suspended for 9 months to 6 months if he does the PSA, what you're saying is that yes, Khabib Nurmagomedov was responsible for his actions. Yet, on the same token, you're trying to say that the pre-fight trash talk played a role in this. So, who's responsible? If your argument for why you need to start punishing people for their pre-fight trash talk is that it leads to this, then what you're doing is you're taking responsibility off of the person who reacts by jumping in the crowd and just assaulting someone's corner. So, who's responsible? Is it the person who has some pre-fight trash talk where everyone kind of has the same understanding? Yeah, this is just a cell fight, or is it the person who, after 4 rounds of beating up the guy who talked trash to him, getting them to submit, still feels the need to jump into the crowd and attack someone who wasn't even involved? It's not like Dylan Dennis was the one who was making all the claims or doing all the trash talk at the New York press conference. It was Conor. He got his revenge on Conor, and he decided he still wanted to jump in and attack Dylan Dennis. So obviously Khabib's the one responsible here, but when you're trying to make it seem like the trash talk it played a major role, you're taking responsibility off of him. But again, if you're going to take responsibility off of him, then don't fine him $500,000. If you're going to put responsibility on him, then don't try to say that this has to do with the trash talk. You're just full of shit. You're trying to overstep your bounds. You're going to lose, and if there's a lawsuit against you for trying to limit free speech. And in the end of the day, you're just trying to hurt a sport. There's no value to taking away trash talk. Trash talk is good. Trash talk is great for fighting. It gets people interested. It makes these matchups more interesting. What's different. Maybe if you're a hardcore MMA fan, you like seeing a matchup between a guy like Conor and a guy like Khabib, and that's like, ooh, striker versus grappler, who wins? How's Conor going to be able to handle the range? How's Khabib going to be able to get inside? What if it gets to the mat? What happens then? That's interesting for a lot of people, but that's maybe interesting for 200,000 buys. It's not interesting for 2 million buys. A lot of the extra buys come from casual fans who really do get interested in the trash talk, and a lot of that money ends up trickling its way down in Nevada from people traveling out there to visit, from people who are actually going to the fights, from people who are just going there to watch it and kind of be in the same area. So for them, they reap the benefit of it, but at the same point, they're trying to act like this needs to be policed. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely stupid. It makes no sense at all. From Ariel Helwani, talking about the same thing that Marnell said. We're going to start finding and suspending for what you say as opposed to what you do. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's so stupid that he thought it'd be okay to say that out loud. It's so stupid that he's going to get away with saying that out loud. And it would be so stupid if they actually do this. It just doesn't make any sense at all. It's just a terrible idea. I don't know what kind of role the Constitution plays into an athletic commission for an MMA fight, but to be an American and to think that that's an okay idea to just start policing what people say, it makes no sense. The UFC can handle that on their own. The UFC's brand is behind it. The UFC's brand insignia is behind on the banner when these guys are having their press conferences. If there's an issue, that's for the UFC to decide. That's for the UFC to say, hey, we don't want these sorts of sentiments associated with our business. It's not for the Nevada State Athletic Commission to decide, especially when these press conferences aren't even taking place in Nevada in the first place. Like, just mind your own business. This doesn't have anything to do with you. You don't need to stick your fucking nose in here and try to get involved. Another tweet from Ariel Helwani just saying the commission is saying they need to take an active role in holding fighters accountable for their language and conduct at press conferences. They don't seem happy with the dialogue from McGregor leading up to the fight. Chairman Marnell called it embarrassing. Again, if he doesn't like it, that's his own personal opinion. I don't know that he needs to be bringing that into what's essentially like a kangaroo court proceeding. No one really gives a shit if you like it, if you think it's embarrassing. That's not what's at play here. We're talking about the post-fight brawl. So whether or not you liked Conor McGregor offering a glass of whiskey to a guy who's a known Muslim, that's beside the point. That's not for you to really comment on at that point or to try to police in the future. And then Brad Komodo also talking about the same things. They're saying right now the Nevada Commission is essentially telling Conor McGregor, who's not here, if he continues to ramp up his pre-fight talk in a similar way he has, they will consider taking disciplinary action, which they've never done for verbal actions. Again, what does that even mean? Ramp up pre-fight talk? Like, you kind of have to outline what that even means. Like, oh, you're going to start like putting in hate speech laws? Like, is this going to be like a freaking liberal arts college campus now where you guys are going to start policing hate speech? And if someone gets microaggressed or if another fighter gets microaggressed, and you're going to start finding people or trying to like take them off their fights, like, just stay out of it. This is fighting. Like, you don't need to have a role in everything. You already handle the fights. You already handle a bunch of other regulatory stuff. You don't need to expand your reach. Just stay in your lane.